and welcome back to another Nextlander podcast. Alex Navarro, pleasure to see you again.
Indeed, I feel like I just saw you yesterday. It's crazy.
We do. I do feel like we have kind of just been recording for the last 72 hours straight. We did the Ramblecast, and then we did our Gamescom, and then we did Never Been a Better podcast. And now we're back here doing another podcast to talk about some of those things, but we are joined by Rob Zacny. Hi, Rob.
Hi, I'm not one to talk, but that sounds like too many podcasts.
It's never too many There's always something to talk about. There's the stuff never stops happening, I've found.
I don't know what too many podcasts would even look like, man. I mean, this is what everyone does, right? Like you're constantly recording 5 podcasts a week. That's just how the world works.
We're going to climb to the top of the charts, not on the quality of our podcast, but on the quantity of our podcast.
Absolutely.
That's the Nextlander promise. Did you ever see that scene from the trailer in World War Z where the zombie bodies are just piling up and they're just climbing over each other? That's us with podcasts.
We have 1 million downloads a week. How many shows do you publish? Many. What's it to you?
500,000, as a matter of fact.
Problem is, it's over. We publish over 1 million.
Yeah.
So some aren't even getting downloaded once. It's amazing. Rob, you're over at Remap. How are things going over there?
Things are good. We also do many podcasts. So like I think we've been trying to, as the Chicago Bears season is drawing closer, and they are the feature of the feature story of the season's HBO Hard Knocks.
Okay.
We've been doing more sports podcasts. So that is already that just making time for that obsession has like required a massive uptick in recording.
I like that your dog heard you say the name Chicago Bears and instinctively started barking with a sort of agitated rage that cannot be stopped.
Yeah, so I'm stuck at home with them today, but also there are a couple things that have gotten, like, it's now happening enough that I think they're related.
Mm-hmm.
The dogs get excited when a show starts.
Oh.
And they start playing and roughhousing. And because of where my office is, I'm in like the prime play area because it's up the stairs. So you can go rocketing up the stairs into the bedroom and then rocketing back down the stairs. Or like one dog can hold the high ground landing and the other can be like halfway up from the first landing. And then they can go like and like sort of fence with their muzzles.
They're just reenacting episode 3. They just constantly do I have the high ground, and then
there's little backflips. Yeah.
Yeah, I did do a couple of backflips, and then you were the chosen dog. You were the one. Yeah, speaking of Star Wars, you're still doing a more civilized age?
We are. We just got into I don't think it's published yet. But the next thing we're going to be tackling, just because we had to do a bit of a schedule change due to some stuff that came up, is the Heir to the Empire novel series by Timothy Zahn, which is a very big deal for yours truly, but also I think for a lot of people who were in that era of Star Wars fandom, where like years before the prequels, nobody knew there were going to be prequels for sure, but you want more Star Wars? Well, here's all these novels. But these are the good novels that people liked.
Is that
not the novels people hated?
Is that the one with Thrawn? Is that
yes, it is.
Oh, okay, is that where he's introduced?
Yep.
Because he was a big deal. I remember him being like, people would talk about, he's the blue guy, right? Like, yeah, people would talk about him, like, and I'd be like, he's not in the movies. And be like, oh, brother. Oh, no. Did you know about the kid? Is it Leia's kid? Who's Leia and Han's kid? Is that who? Isn't there a kid? In
that series, she's pregnant with twins, Jason and Jaina Solo.
Okay. All right. Well, what happened to the? Oh, they got bumped over into the like not canonical universe, right?
They're all part of. They're consigned to Legends.
The Legends universe. Got it right. And then Kylo came in and said, "I'm the legitimate heir. I'm the true heir."
So how long until Disney just straight up punts and says, "All right, all that Legend shit, we're just going to start making shows about that because none of this other shit is working."
It sort of seems like it's weird. They're simultaneously in a try anything mode, but also try anything half-heartedly maybe once and then bail on it.
Give it a season, and by a season we mean 8 episodes, and see what happens.
I still cannot, like, we were recording when the word came that Acolyte was canceled, And it was such a weird place because it was such a deeply flawed show. It had some really interesting things in it. There was, at least one great performance, but it's one of those things where the show was so middling. Right. So the people who hated it most vocally are the worst people in the world. So you kind of want to defend it more than you really felt. Because if you step back and you look at like how much Acolyte cost, and the fact that it was just a short run series, and the episodes struggled to make 30 minutes apiece, you're kind of sitting there being like, what were we doing here?
Yeah.
Like, how did this even make it this far?
It just seems like an ill-conceived project in every possible way.
So, all right, this is a very broad question, but Rob, I'm at a loss. I'm adrift. I'm a Star Wars fan who's adrift post, let's just say 9, right? The movie. Yeah. And I was left with 9, and I walked away from 9 being like, I don't know if I want more Star Wars in my life. And I did like
Andor.
I did like Andor. What is good out there for me, who is like, I consider myself a Star Wars fan. I was a Star Wars kid.
Hey, what's good Star Wars?
Yeah, what's good Star Wars? What is going on? People, is Ashoka good? Is what's good? Mandalorian still good? Because I tuned out of that. It's like, what's happening?
So we haven't it's all bad. Okay. So here's the problem. Like, we haven't watched Ahsoka because it continues from stuff that we are in the process of watching. Like, we're watching the Rebels cartoon series, and we like that a lot. Like, the cartoons were great. Like, Clone Wars was very uneven, but uneven in the way a lot of good sci-fi shows are, where sometimes they're just on a heater. And then there's times where they're spinning their wheels. Some of their concepts don't really take off. Right. You're kind of like, what's going on here? Very old school, like Next Generation, right? Where it's like, you'll have 2 episodes, greatest episode of TV you've ever seen, and then one complete like nightmare of an episode that's like, I don't know, what if there's some goofy shit that happens to Riker and Data? And you're like, great, haven't seen that before. Clone Wars occupies a similar space. Rebels a little more consistent, but a little less like taking less ambitious swings than the Clone Wars cartoon, but both those animation shows are really good. Yeah. I think the other reason they're really good is because, they were given long production runways, so the creative teams got better and better as they went on. And also, animation may be the most compelling way to like depict Star Wars if you don't have huge blockbuster budgets. I think the TV stuff often feels like it's done on the cheap. The word on Ahsoka was it's a continuation of Rebels in live action, but it feels like it's kind of done on the cheap. And there's questions as to whether who's playing Ahsoka?
Rosario Dawson.
Yeah, like that might have been serious miscasting. Just in terms of like a very different sort of performance than you're sort of used to from Ahsoka's a character that's existed for like a decade in animation. So the word on that series wasn't great. Mandalorian, I think, was really good in its first couple seasons. Had some real good moments. Has occasionally is like capital A about some stuff. But I think the most it's ever about is some of the stuff that like Werner Herzog has like a really great monologue in the first season, basically making his case for like, why are people nostalgic for Empire? Why do people like, what has the Republic's freedom brought the galaxy? Good stuff to dig into that sets the stage for how you get to the sequel trilogy. But then it increasingly looks like we're just shooting the shit on a soundstage, and we've got nothing can move because it's a tiny soundstage. So it's a really like, there's no dynamism to it. So that and Boba Fett both kind of felt like they weren't really doing a whole hell of a lot.
Oh, Boba Fett seemed like the one that really tanked.
That's the other problem is it's so much of it feels like lesser fanfic because like the Boba Fett series is basically like, hey, we all love Boba Fett and we know he's a good guy. And I'm like, I don't know that I do know that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I watched some of that and I was like, you're taking the things that appealed to me about Boba Fett, at least as a teenager, and you're just washing it away and making him bad guy with a heart of gold. And I was like, no, I kind of like Boba Fett because he was an asshole bounty hunter. Like,
he was just some dipshit with a cool helmet. That was really what he was.
Totally. Right. And I was like, it's okay. He can be an asshole. He doesn't have to be like he doesn't have to like save orphans and like the dude's out for money.
It's implied in Empire Strikes Back that Darth Vader finds the guy a little too hardcore for his tastes. The no disintegrations caution.
Right.
Yeah. It's like to Darth Vader, like.
Hey, I know I just choked out half of my senior staff, but you.
Yeah, come on, man.
Yeah, this guy's out of control. We gotta watch this guy.
Why do we even have this guy on the ship? I didn't even want this guy here.
And so, and we get to the series, and it's like,
the name of your ship is Slave One. Just like
we don't talk about this. The fire spray now.
Yeah, we let that one go. That's not in the Disney canon.
Did he change his ship?
They changed the name. They don't refer to it as the as Slave One anymore. It is the fire spray.
Wait, really?
Well, because it was Slave One was a fire spray class ship.
I'm not going to disagree with that move. There are moves that Disney has made that it might be like, okay, but like you are right where you don't want to have to be saying that or selling that toy on a shelf.
Yeah.
That's like, Mom, I really want the Slave One. And be like, no.
That's not the thing I disagree with. I don't disagree with them saying that if you're going to make your character a hero character, yes, you have to make that change. The problem is making that character a hero character. That's the issue. Is that character is not a hero and never has been.
Right, and then the series is like, it's embarrassing. It's like you're the new Daimyo of Tatooine, you know, because everyone knew Jabba. He's the Daimyo. We all heard it during Return of the Jedi. Luke's always like Daimyo Jabba. You must give me my friend back. But when he takes over, the whole show is like, but you have to be a kinder, gentler Daimyo than. Boba, when are you going to bring jobs, good-paying jobs to Tatooine?
Tatooine is now a place of honor and justice and meritocracy and pensions and you know, and also good wages and opportunity. Look, Hive of Slum and Villainy, that's in the past or maybe the future, depending on where we are. We can get past that.
It should honestly, it should have been. This was their chance to lean into just hey, you guys want Star Wars Peaky Blinders? And I'm a little piggy. I'd be like, I do. That sounds great. But instead, it's gangster with a heart of gold, which means he can't do any gangster shit. Yeah. Instead, he's going to befriend local teens and teach them to be cool and stay in school.
He's not Kiryu. I'm sorry. Boba Fett is not fucking Kiryu. He is not the gangster with a heart of gold. He is not a person who's going to go out there and solve everyone's fucking sitcom problems on a week-to-week basis. He's a fucking bounty hunter.
And so all of that takes place after Sarlacc, right? Because he escapes the Sarlacc and then is rehabilitated.
Yeah, surprisingly trivial. Doing that.
Do they do anything with that? Do they explain anything about what the Sarlacc experience was like? Do they do anything?
We get a flashback that 5 minutes after the sail barge blew up and all the rebels peeled out of there. He I think cut his way out of the Sarlacc and then was picked up by sand people. And then they have a Dances with Wolves thing. And he's like, I will learn your ways. And then they all get killed by fish guys.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I imagined it for 30 years.
It's a real. I fell off of that show because I wanted badass Boba and not necessarily.
It's weird. I don't. The weird thing is there are twee sensibilities at work behind a lot of the Star Wars stuff, and the funny thing is the cartoon shit that some of the creative team, Dave Filoni was the head of those productions. His sensibilities aren't, at least in those cartoons, twee in the same way. The cartoons have moments more of the badass shit you want. When Vader appears in the cartoons, they are aware that you have to meet that moment. That when Vader shows up, this has to be death incarnate approaching. That there's only one guy who's going to get out of an encounter with Vader alive, and that's going to be Luke Skywalker, because that's where the story is building to. If you weren't Luke Skywalker, this guy shows up, that lightsaber comes out, it's done. That is
you either escape or you're dead.
Well, there's a reason there's a menace behind the Empire, and it's you don't always get that because stormtroopers sometimes feel like dopes, right? But if this guy, if you're not paying your money to the Empire, right? What's the consequence? Well, if Vader shows up, you're just done, right? Like, you might get roughed up, you might get a shakedown from some stormtroopers, they might be on the take. But what does Vader want? Like, does he want power? I don't know if he does want power. What like, it's kind of an emotional tie to things. At least that's my take from the 4, 5, and 6. And so some in 1, 2, and 3 also is that, like, he's not really in it for the Empire. He's in it because he's lost everything, and there's nothing to be gained from. He's like a true believer, right? Like, he's like a true believer in order and not fucking around, and
what the dark side can do. He thinks for the universe. I think.
So, I think one of the things that they're smart about with how they depict Vader in those cartoons in particular, because you're trying to fill in the gaps now between who he is in the original films and then what we know about, like, how things play out with Anakin in the prequels, is that it sort of seems like there's a bit of a direction they've gone in with, like, the guy hasn't gotten any of what he wanted. And so there's kind of like a commitment to just, like, dark, violent nihilism with Vader, where it's like there is nothing left. He's already damned. Might as well damn himself again and again by just unleashing that rage on the only targets that are at least, like, will give him a useful outlet for it, the Jedi.
Yeah.
And so the interesting thing about him is, like, it's increasingly, like, there's a moment in the Obi-Wan show was not very good. Again, kind of.
I saw that also,
production.
and kind of.
But
petered out.
Yeah. There's a moment where he's kind of shown he's in his little, like, palace on that lava planet where he's burned, Mustafar. And he just hangs out there. There's nothing, and I kind of like that for him, where it's like, once he's served his purpose, nobody wants him around. The Emperor doesn't want him around. It's like, go back in your monster cave and just wait until you are
we'll
summoned.
Summon you when we need you.
Yeah, and I think in my, at least, and again, and this is my episode 6 brain going, is like, he kind of knows he's the monster, and he's like, I don't know if he's happy with that, at least in 6, where he's like, yeah, I'm the heavy, I'm the thug, I'm the monster you don't want to show up, and then has, like, a crisis of conscience, right? Like, kind of, like, realizes with Luke that he is, maybe he doesn't have to be this. Maybe there is some good left in him also. But for a while,
he was lied to. That is the moment I think they've actually retroactively recast really, really well, which is that once Obi-Wan shows up again after a long absence, and then a minute later he learns that Luke Skywalker is the kid who blew up the Death Star and is, like, the rebels, like, new preternaturally gifted pilot, and it's the immediate, that is the moment, like, the entire, like, veil of lies comes down, right? The entire thing that the Emperor that has him truly give up on any sort of hope or redemption is Vader's like, sorry, Padme died and we lost the kids.
Well, he didn't even know there was 2, right? There was at that time he knew there was only one,
right? But either way, he's. Like,
he thinks they're all dead.
Lost his kid.
I think you're absolutely right. Like, that nihilism and the part of, like, what world, why build a world, right? And I think, maybe when Luke comes back, he's like, well, now we have a reason to build a world. Like, we don't have to do it. I don't want to get too deep down to Star Wars.
No, we're already here, man. So
we're here. So basically, what I'm getting from you, Rob, is really nothing in the current slate.
It's the problem is, if you really like Star Wars, it's still. Like, what's the way to put it? Like, it's a frozen pizza. Mm-hmm. There's still a bit of, like,
you're not gonna throw it away, right?
I mean, the frozen pizza still has pepperoni on it. It's not great pepperoni, but it's on it. There is a lightsaber on there, and it is delicious.
Right.
That's basically the place where it's like, now the only one of these shows that my wife, like, bailed on was The Acolyte. We watched the opening, like, salvo of episodes, and she was like, I don't think I need to keep watching this.
Yeah.
And I can't blame her. There was better stuff later, but it was such a bad, like, foot forward that show put. And I think that's so many of these shows, they all end up leading with their chin because they don't have enough style. They don't have enough, like, they haven't figured out what's a good hook for the story beyond it's Star Wars. And so you end up with a lot of these shows that feel anything but urgent. You don't have anything approaching like, think about how much the first film grabs you by the throat. The big starships blazing away at each other, and then you have that like really tense moment before the stormtroopers come pouring into the. You don't even know, you don't have context, but it's arresting. It sort of drops you in the middle of something that's compelling. All these shows are just like, there's so much table setting and so much like, hey, it's Star Wars.
And I mean, look, I don't want to just like dump on Disney entirely, though I am not particularly a big fan of most things Disney. But the reason I think the Marvel stuff has worked so much better under the general Disney direction is because they are literally just taking storylines that have existed in comic books for decades. And obviously they're retrofitting them for whatever their cinematic universe is, but it literally is just a parade of movies that are reminding you of things you probably read 10, 20, 30 years ago. Whereas with Star Wars, it's like you said, they're filling in gaps. They're trying to build a timeline for stuff that we never saw in any kind of like represented media outside of like the novels, which they have now declared to be uncanon. And the problem is they have no good ideas, no interesting ideas about what those gaps are beyond a certain degree of fan service and sometimes a willingness to let artists run a little bit wild like they did with Andor, where it was an artist who had a very clear idea of what he wanted that series to be, how it fit into the canon, notions about what those gaps and what he was filling in actually meant to the larger storyline, versus stuff like Ahsoka and The Mandalorian, where it feels like they're filling the gaps by just plopping a bunch of fan service in there that does not really hit for more than a hot second.
All right, let's tie. Here we go. Ready?
We're gonna tie it all up. Let's do it.
Ready? Here we go. So, with that being said, Rob, what are you looking forward to in Outlaws? Video games. I did it.
We did it. We finally got there.
I think with Outlaws, the thing that they've done really well is showcasing that it's going to let you access part of the fantasy of like going into the Star Wars universe for games, right? Inhabiting the space. That's always something that the best games in some way have let you. We're talking about like the annoying ways the TV shows tend to fill in these gaps, and mostly it's like. It's almost like they're filling out a Wikipedia entry for how do we get from this point of the story to this one.
I'm very glad you said Wikipedia.
Yeah, someone had to.
Yeah. Andor has its roots in this a little bit. Is like the most interesting gaps are like what's going on in the background of these universes in between the plot beats. Just what's the overall vibe. And I think the most interesting stuff in Outlaws tends to be you're hanging out in your spaceship with your badass, like sexy droid buddy. You got your cute little space cat, like hopping around behind you, space dog cat thing. And then you're going around, like you're doing dirty deals with corrupt Imperial officials, smugglers. And it looks pretty well imagined, right? It looks grimy and authentically Star Warsy in a way that, being real, a lot of these TV shows fail to they fail to hit the assignment. Outlaws kind of looks more like it gives you what you want, which is I just want to go and like hang out and like get up to smuggler and scoundrel adventures in this world and like go see what's happening in the like nooks and crannies of this universe.
Yes, live in the margins of the universe, right?
Like, to me, for a long time there, and I think I've said this on here before, outside of the stuff that is very explicitly Jedi-focused, like, to me, Shadows of the Empire was the ideal version of a Star Wars video game. You know, not because it was an amazing mechanical video game, but because in terms of what it did in the universe, it let you be a scoundrel, it let you kind of exist in parallel to a lot of things that were happening in the background of the bigger moments of Star Wars. Like, you got to do your Hoth mission and all that kind of stuff. But it also felt like you were not a super powerful being. You were just a guy that lived within the confines of what's going on in this universe, and you could just kind of exist and do blaster shit in Star Wars. And that's what it seems to me, at least, like what this current one is going for, albeit at a much more open world kind of scale.
Still, I'll still stand up for KOTOR.
No, I like KOTOR.
Very good game. And Force Unleashed.
I'm saying if you're not doing Jedi stuff, is what I'm saying.
Hey, Force Unleashed, low key, amazing filling in gaps.
A great B game, I hear.
The game, I've never inevitably I'm gonna have to play it because it does seem like the game part was the stuff like people didn't totally love as much.
It wasn't
the
great like
entire
level
notion,
design, but the mechanics were really fun.
The cinematics are such good Star Wars shit in that. The notion that that they've got their own like little Force sensitive kid that they're training up to be like their version of Luke Skywalker. But the thing that always kills me, spoilers for the end of Force Unleashed, and I do love this, is that your character falls in with the rebels, right, and starts like working to basically bring down the Emperor and Vader before the first movie, before the Battle of Yavin. And it turns out it's all been a clever trap to bring out the Emperor's secret enemies, bring them into the open, and reveal that your little character, Starkiller, he's also the bad guy. He's also disloyal. And the punchline at the end of it is the Emperor, as sort of like a counterintelligence coup, helped kick off the rebellion. He like unmasked Bail Organa and Mon Mothma and all those people. And the end of it, what he's got is a fucking rebellion on his hands. Like the game ends with him turning to Vader and being like, we got a problem now, man. This rebellion, if we don't nip this in the bud, this could be the end of us. And I do love that, like, it's this circular, like, the paranoia and the need to like destroy your enemies and dominate your enemies is in that game what undoes the Emperor. This active hubris is like, I'm going to get everyone who hates me and who has the means to harm me to ally and like start fighting against me on the secret, and then I'll get them.
Yeah, and then they unionize and basically are like, we have a lot in common. It is a weird thing that you've got. What'd you say you were? I run a planet. Well, that's a lot of resources. We could probably use some of that. I know. I like the gameplay on it, and it was silly because it had that engine in it. I forget what they called it, but the touchy, sticky engine in it, where everything was like people would like hold hands and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, the physics were really why you were there, by and large.
All right, let's do this. Let's take a quick break here. We are going to talk about what happened at Gamescom. We're going to talk about opening night as it is still ongoing. We're going to talk a little bit about what we've been playing, and then we're going to roll up a bunch of the new stuff into that. So that's going to probably take us through a majority of the show there. So stick around. We'll be right back. All right, we are back. So Rob, aside from Star Wars, what you been up to? Playing anything interesting?
I am. I finally made the time. I'm currently in a mode where I just yearn to have like military sims with lots of like buttons to fuss with and systems to play around with and all that good stuff. And that led me to a game that came out a little while ago that I just didn't get around to playing. Destroyer, the U-Boat Hunter.
Destroyer, the U-Boat Hunter.
I don't know that I've ever heard a title that sounds more like a Rob game.
Yeah, it is. It's from Iron Wolf Studio, and it is. There's a lot of U-boat games, a lot of submarine games. There's not so many about surface ships fighting submarines, right? It's more funny, more entertaining, more fun to be the hunter rather than the shepherd,
right? And
this is a game about being being sort of in the shepherd role here. And if you pull up like screenshots, the screenshots sell a certain vibe. Like it presents itself as this is Greyhound, the game that Tom Hanks surprisingly fun.
I thought that movie was okay.
Yeah, I think it's completely just, you were just in it. Like, do you want to know what it was like to be just sort of trapped aboard a destroyer during the worst days of the of the war on the Atlantic?
Yeah, it's a lot of map tables in the screenshots. It's a lot of like looks like plotting, and you could feel the sweat dripping onto these tables in these screenshots.
Yeah, and that is really one of the things the game is also selling you on, is you're jumping between these stations and learning how to use all these different plotting tables and various ways of tracking information, and really conducting this type of warfare in a purely analog setting. So there are some things where if these systems are real, it's kind of jaw dropping that like this is how they did it. Like there is like a targeting plotter that you use adjacent to the sonar station that basically like has a printout of little lines that just as you get readings, the paper keeps scrolling like a little stock ticker. Mm-hmm. And if you calibrate this little ruler correctly on this hinge, basically when those plots begin to overlap with the edge of your ruler, it's time to like fire your depth charges. That is your trajectory.
That's basically like the forward momentum of a thing going through water and where the submarine would be. Is that what it's trying to tell you?
Yeah, it's tracking. So like basically what sets the angle of your ruler is the closing speed of the two vessels.
Oh my gosh.
And once you know that, the sonar returns once they overlap, because they just give you the wrong the nature of a sonar return is that's just like a measure of raw distance between you and the target.
Yeah.
Once that overlaps with the firing line on the ruler, that indicates that at this moment, at these closing speeds, firing the depth charges will hit the submarine. It's your best chance.
And okay, I don't know. So I grew up in a household where my dad loved submarine games and naval war. He was in the Navy. He liked there was I don't know if that was the golden age in that era in the kind of mid 90s to early 90s of like Silent Service, 688 Attack Sub, Seawolf. Is that the golden age of submarine games?
100%. Like,
okay.
That is the era where the submarine genre was like an actual genre. That was a 4 or 5 of these games will come out in a year. Do you like World War I submarine? Sorry, I'm not sure anyone's done World War I submarines, even though functionally they're pretty similar to the World War II article. But
I bet there's at least one game out there that does those.
There's got to be. But do you like the World War II submarines? Which theater do you like? Do you like Pacific? Do you like the North Atlantic? Everyone
What's
likes
your
the
favorite war?
North Atlantic. Yeah. Or do you like Cold War? Which era of the Cold War? Do you like more speculative, like end of the world, like nuclear wars broken out, and like you're hunting nuclear missile subs out there, or all this stuff? And then that kind of starts drying up because, well, when I start getting into games, I think the era you're talking about, the History Channel dad or the history section of the bookstore dad was a huge portion of the market for video games. Mm-hmm. So and games were small and they were easy to make. So if there's a few 100,000 people out there who are like, I just fucking love submarine games.
Yeah.
You can make submarine games, and that's a pretty good business. By the 2000s, the games are expensive. That audience is no longer enough to sustain a lot of these genres. Things begin to consolidate. And things really collapse down to, at that point, like the big one, the last one still standing, is the Silent Hunter series.
Right.
I would probably also say at a time in the early 90s or mid 90s, the guys who are in an office who probably can afford a PC at home are the guys who are buying these games. And that changes over the course of time, where the demographic of the game buying, like 16-year-olds maybe don't want to do their Pacific Theater submarine games anymore.
Some very specific 16-year-olds probably do, but yeah.
Right, but like that and suddenly you're like, no, how about Doom? And it's like, oh yeah, we could use the PC for that as well. We could that could also happen on here, I guess. And so yeah, my dad felt abandoned where it was flight sims and submarine games all day long on the Commodore and then on the kind of early PCs, and then the kids got on there and took it over.
I think they also start getting more complicated. That's the other thing, is that the ones that are left standing, because they can simulate more stuff in greater detail, they start getting more like, if you look at the most hardcore flight sims of the early 90s, with a little bit of effort in perusing the manual, anyone can fly them pretty well. Compare that experience to the infamous video of Drew Scanlon trying to start a warthog in DCS.
Yeah. Well, even like Jane's stuff where you buy a Jane's game and it's like, all right, get the manual out. Let me get my notes. I'm going to go through this binder that came with this game.
Yeah, well, and that's a good example, though, of, like, the Jane's games are a good example of, like, how a genre can kind of kill itself. So those were pretty good flight sims. They're pretty intense. But were they the most realistic? They felt plenty realistic to me, but it turns out a lot of flight sim people fucking hated them because they're too arcadey.
Oh.
And by that, it means they had graphics. And like planes looked like planes. And so like, but the big thing was there were just a few areas where they fudged details about like flight dynamics and characteristics. Like one plane was in the game for US Navy fighters that wasn't carrier capable at all. And people were like, that's completely unacceptable. Like that thing actually needed a very long runway. It was land-based. And that is kind of a goofy error, but at the same time, it's like the whole game kind of gets tainted with that's a baby sim for babies.
Mm-hmm.
And so suddenly you've got the sim audience kind of like shitting over things that are a little more accessible.
Mm.
And then that's where you start seeing things really bifurcate between the road leading to DCS and then the road leading to Ace Combat.
Sure. Okay.
That's where you start seeing things really, really open up here. But Destroyer U-Boat Hunter is, what it's trying to do is it's giving you the other side of a type of game you've played a bunch before. It's set in World War II during the Atlantic convoys, and your job there is basically to you are riding outside the convoy, the little like the box of unarmed merchant ships that you're trying to get across the Atlantic, and you're going to eventually hit U-boats, and they're going to be out there, and there will be variable numbers of them because the nature of Wolfpack tactics was they would just kind of flood the zone and overwhelm the escorts, and then they would just pick apart the convoy. So your job is to the tutorial is actually pretty decent. The tutorial lays out that it's actually less about sinking subs than it is kind of beating the bushes to chase them off and discourage them, because a submerged U-boat is very, very slow. So if it misses its window of opportunity to attack, it can't catch up. Like once the convoy sails past, they're gone. So the thing that you have to do is kind of race around trying to identify where the U-boats are hiding and just harass them and chase them off.
And keep them out of range? Is that basically...
As best you can.
Okay.
Because if they do get inside your cordon and they start taking shots, like things can get pretty hairy and things start falling apart. So more important than sinking the U-boats, according to the game, is just making it hard for them to get into attack mode and keeping them in survival mode.
Man.
But if you let go of one because you're like, I think I've chased him off, and you didn't chase him far enough, and then you go engage someone else, that thing's gonna turn around and start shooting. And but also if you overfocus on one, it turns out maybe you missed one or two U-boats that are out there, and they open fire. So the thing that you're playing there is usually you're in a convoy that has other destroyers and maybe even aircraft overhead that you can call in, and so you are sort of in addition to using your ship to chase these things down and drop death charges and sort of let them know that you know where they are, you're also directing other ships to pick up other contacts and chase them off. And you are trying to basically, you might be being hunted by like a half dozen U-boats at a time. And it might be you on like two other destroyers. So it's like 3 ships. How are you going to fight 6 U-boats simultaneously? So it's that juggling act to keep them at bay.
Okay. I have someone who, again, came up with a lot of submarine games on the computer. I didn't play the Super Simi ones, and has watched a handful of submarine movies, both on my own and with during a watchcast. Does a submarine have to be nearer the surface to fire a torpedo to take a boat out, or can they shoot at an angle, like 45-degree angle, to hit a boat? Like, can they be pretty far underwater?
Modern ones can, but in those days they couldn't.
Okay.
And I think there's a couple things. One is that the torpedo tube has to be flooded.
Okay.
So you have to open like a breach in the hull and let water come rushing in. At certain depths, that's just a dangerous amount of pressure, because what is holding all that water out of the main part of the sub, you go to torpedo tube launcher, it is just a big hatch with a one of those spin wheels to lock it in place. If that thing is burst open by the pressure of the ocean, the sub is flooded immediately.
I get you. So the deeper you are, the more pressure you're letting in.
Yeah. So even if they could track and acquire a target at a greater depth, they probably couldn't fire at a very great depth. But the thing that actually keeps them on the surface is the fact that they need to use the periscope to get any targeting data fed into the torpedo. The torpedo itself, and this was in the Silent Hunter games. There's this game I need to get into that's just called U-Boat right now.
Yeah,
which is like it appears to be taking the submarine video game community by storm. All the content creators are feasting on U-Boat right now.
I think I might have played this one with Drew at some point. This is the multiplayer one where like you can like run around stations.
Well, I can't remember if it is multiplayer. Because there's like crew management aspects, but yes, you are jumping from station to station.
It might have maybe it was a different game. It might have been a different one. I don't want to.
Barotrauma was a submarine.
No, that was definitely wasn't that one.
That's something else.
Yeah, we did try that one, but yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt about U-Boat.
Yeah, so like you're sort of kept on the surface using the periscope because you have to tell the torpedo where to go. You always think of it as like you just sort of point the ship at the target and you sort of lead it appropriately and you fire the torpedo. What you actually end up doing is you feed like programming into the torpedo to like okay, like turn at this angle, run at this depth, like go with the speed. Like the torpedo has crude programming that you put into it before you fire it.
Even at the time, even in World War II.
Yeah, that's one of the things that this game tries to bring out too, is that using purely analog means and like crude computing, they're able to do a surprising amount of like target tracking and like plotting. And so that's kind of one of the things that Destroyers is really trying to do as well, is it's trying to render the actual like physical interfaces of how you would do this stuff and how you would how you would sort of see the situation, how you would like turn data from a sonar station to map data. It tries to get at this to varying degrees of success. It's pretty neat, but I think the thing that's a bit of a bummer is that one, sometimes I feel extraneous to the game because the game's like, man, it's hard to kill a submarine with depth charges. Not for the AI destroyers I'm working with. Like, if I tell them, like, hey, go engage the sub, about 5 minutes later, I will get like a little picture-in-picture camera of a sub just being ripped apart by depth charges. Okay. And it's like, Bloodhound, this is Mountie. We've got an oil slick and wreckage in the water. It's like, great. Good work, Mountie. I still have failed to kill the sub after like 4 depth charge runs on it. Mountie go kills it. So the AI allies like just start massacring submarines. At just incredible accuracy. But the other thing is that it doesn't always feel like, I don't know, like once I played the game for like 2 or 3 hours, I was starting to have some real luck hunting the submarines and chasing them off. And that's kind of neat. It was satisfying to like be figuring out and getting better at it. But it also started to feel like, I don't know if these submarine captains are very bright. Like I feel like they could have fired by now. They should have shot. And I don't know why they keep like I don't know why they don't leave and come back later, or there's just a lot of like, they're kind of. It feels like they're kind of serving themselves up as targets to get killed.
Like to the point where like if you feel like you were playing against a human, you'd be toast. Like you would like
100%. The sheer number of times, like it's if you were playing like if I were playing against myself in like on the other side of this, I'm playing Silent Hunter. Every boat in this convoy is fucked. Like they're all going to the bottom.
100% hit rate, and like you're just
because basically like I don't know what I'm doing. Like I'm figuring it out, but like I'm kind of doing donuts with my destroyer, just like firing depth charges until like a submarine dies. But the problem is, why is the submarine staying there, letting me do that? It should just once it sort of breaks contact, it should stay hidden until I actually go away. But they kind of linger and let you eventually get them. Not always. Sometimes you do get one that like sneaks off and then surprises you 10 minutes later with an attack. But more often than not, it feels like once you really have these guys on lock, they don't have the wherewithal to get away. And that's from you, from your AI out, like the AI destroyers. They will just no. That's just death.
They've got like a fish on the line. They're not getting away.
So like. The presentation is really, really cool. Like I love the way the game looks. The vibe is neat. As you said, like you can feel like the sweat pouring off people's brows, dripping onto these plotting tables. But it doesn't feel like you're playing for too long before you've kind of seen its main trick. Now, I say that without having played its campaign, because when I fired up the campaign, I was thrown into what felt like 20 minutes of really endearing cinematics. Very old school. Like when I said this is like trying to be Greyhound the game, I do believe for the single player they're trying to be Greyhound the game. Like it is like you're not just an anonymous captain. You're this guy, and like we need to, we all need to remember what's at stake here. So there's lots of characters in the story, all this stuff. But once you're aboard ship, it's understandable why you make this compromise. A lot of the way you get info relayed is through like crewmen on aboard the ship reporting things loud, like contact bearing 26, but they sort of stitch that audio together. So it is like one line. There's like 3-line readings, maybe only 1-line reading, who knows, of like contact, and then different like audio samples for 1, 5, like all of that. And so you hear the stuff constantly, and it's a little grating because there's times where it's like, I just, I would love it if like you didn't talk and I just got the printout basically of like what you're trying to tell me. Yeah. Because this is not voice acted. This is like someone recorded the dialogue for all these numbers and all these directions, but like there is no recording of like a panicked sonarman being like contact bearing 256 depth. You don't get that, which is the kind of what you want in a submarine movie. The submarine
son of a
movie,
bitch, you've killed us.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. This is what you want, is like it should feel sweaty, but they didn't have the budget to make it sweaty in that way.
Right.
So
very few of these games have a good sweat budget, unfortunately.
Yeah, they do their best. Like generally the game looks pretty good. Like when you're sailing through a storm, or like when these convoys, when things go a little bad, and maybe your convoy is burning down around you, it's pretty striking visually. But like it's a game I like. I think it is, if you are somebody who's like, if you were like in this, like if you were a submarine gamer, and you just kind of felt like you never got access to the version that's about like fighting against the submarines, this doesn't. This is that game. It's pretty good. But it feels like the 1.0 version of like a much better game, or like the demo of what could be a better game. Will it get that opportunity? Probably not. I bet you this might be the only Destroyer game we get for ages.
You never know. Maybe this, some of these things take off. This is put out by Daedalic, right? Like, that's a real publisher. They put out a ton of stuff. Maybe
they're a prolific publisher. Yeah, real publisher. I don't know. I feel like I've associated them with like like Euro adventures.
Totally. Yeah. Like point and click adventures.
Yeah. But like they're one of those publishers that they've I think they've always sort of been known for like, it's cool that you're out there publishing these games because they have kept stuff in the portfolio that that a publisher should have. They haven't done the thing where we're only interested in games we know will be good.
Totally. Yes, they have a diverse portfolio.
The possibility of a game sucking has never discouraged Dave from moving forward.
I think they also did put out Barrow Trauma. I think that's them. So yeah, they like stuff that's underwater, above water. They're all over the place. All right. Speaking of being all over the place, Gamescom happened, or Opening Night Live happened, which is I realized I had this like Alex saw it in real time as Keeley was talking about the Game Awards, and I was like, oh my god, it is the Ouroboros of Keeley of like, we are just we're just going into that, and then
each event feeds into the next one,
and then we'll just do the next thing, and we'll just come, oh my god, right, because I had this sense that like, okay, we'll do this and then we're done, and then we'll take a break and we'll be back.
We're never
next
done.
year.
It's never over.
It's never over. It'll be Game Awards, and then there'll be something else, and then they'll be back in the summer, and then we'll be back here again. It just never ends. And I think that's a good example of maybe how I felt about Opening Night Live, because there weren't a lot of announcements. There's just not a lot left to announce. Like we've covered a lot of ground here, and Keeley has covered that ground
in June. In fact, like 2 months ago, he covered a lot of that ground.
So, but there was some news there, and we'll kind of just bebop our way through some of this stuff. We all saw it. Rob, what did you think generally of the 2 hours spent with Opening Night Live?
Are you sure it was only 2 hours?
I think it was just the runtime was about 2 hours.
It was like there was a point where I was like, I want to go home. I don't want to go to another ride. I don't want to hear about any more games, Mr. Keeley. I want to go home.
Mom, can we just go home? No, we're here until we're here. We paid for the ticket.
We paid $90 to get you into Gamescom Opening Night Live. You are going to sit there. You are going to learn about the fucking Hoyoverse, you goddamn little miscreant.
That's the shit that's breaking me.
Yes.
Is like, it feels like, how do we have 3 Hoyoverse blocks in one show? Surely we can just cover all the shit in one go.
I said it during the stream, lady, they are putting his kids through college. Those Hoyoverse trailers are the thing that I think are funding this entire project.
They just need to have their own show. At this point, they just need to do
the
their
Hoyo
own
show.
Thing. Yeah, the Hoyo show.
Well, I think it's in this weird place of they want to be in front of like mainstream audiences and like have that recognition and like speak to people who've maybe like bailed at certain points from being part of being interested in the Hoyoverse. But you end up, you keep encountering this shit. Each one is like all right, here's an inscrutable little anime trailer.
Totally.
And then it's a reminder that like, hey, remember these 3 games exist. Come back and spend more money.
But the thing with the Hoyoverse stuff and it was a Honkai Star Rail, Genshin Impact, and ZZZ or Zero Zone.
Yeah, Zenless Zone Zero is what ZZZ stands for.
Is like they're not up there being like, okay, in Genshin Impact, you take on the role of whatever. It's just a fury of like,
and if you don't,
totally. And I'm like, man, I love every trailer I've seen for ZZZ. Those trailers are great. They're fun. Makes me be like, this is a cool looking game. I'm into it. And I have no idea what you do in that game. How long they've been out. You tell me those games have been out for 15 years. I'd believe you. You go look them up. They have so much out there for these games in terms of updates and packs and stuff. So yeah, Hoyoverse, they're like the new Ubisoft of press conferences. They will if you say you're going to be in front of 10 people, they're like, hey, we've got some stuff here.
I never feel more like a old irrelevant boomer than when Hoyoverse is showing up, or then like there's a bunch of shit that's like, oh yeah, this is a huge Korean MMO. It's like super popular. I'm surprised you haven't heard of it. And I'm like, and this is different than the one they showed 2 minutes ago. It's like, yeah, it's totally different. It's like
profoundly different, apparently.
Yep.
Yeah, or like there's like, it'll just be a trailer for a thing with like three nouns in it, and I'm like, defeat unnerved trauma, and you're like,
great, sounds good.
I don't know what that is. Oh, actually, that came out 12 years ago in early access. It's huge game. And
it's actually pretty old, but it's finally like translated and it's over here now. So,
but
it's huge news.
This is Europe's kind of big moment, big E3 stuff. So you gotta give some time here for people who didn't care about what used to be E3 and the kind of Summer Games Fest to get their hands on with stuff there who couldn't make it. So you're gonna see some repeats here, but as far as Keighley's presentation is concerned, I feel like it is really still marketed around come for the announcements, come for the tune in press, tune in diehard hardcore games people for these big announcements. And there were a few things, mostly kind of revolving around tightened up dates on a few things here. Anything bounce out? Borderlands 4, the official announcement there. Do anything
they sure
for
did
anybody?
bounce that one out.
that was kind of the big opening.
Yeah.
So I thought the mics were broken in the arena. I thought like they just the crowd mics weren't working, but like they worked for other stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I do think they did not do a good job of miking that audience regardless, because even when they did pipe up, it was still not that loud. But yeah, that the response to Borderlands was at most just kind of a
yeah, right.
do
And
you
that's
think
like
the movie let the tide out on the entire people like? Do you think enough time has passed and people are no longer as into Borderlands, and then this thing shows up that kind of throws into relief of like, it was actually more like this than you might think, and like you see normies reacting to like, this is the worst shit I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Do you think the movie's actually kind of backfired? It makes the whole thing less cool.
I would say that if I thought anyone had actually gone to see the movie, but that's the problem, is that I don't think enough people have actually seen it to have salted that earth for people who actually like Borderlands. I think at this point there will certainly be an audience of people who are like, wait, more Borderlands. I think that's not going to change, but I don't think, especially after Borderlands 3, which was fine by all accounts, but seemed very overstuffed compared to what it actually had to offer. I don't know. I think the appetite will be that game will probably sell another 1 million or 2 units, but no one will care beyond that. Like, its cultural footprint that it may have had like a decade ago is just gone, and I don't think the movie ruined that. I think the fact that Borderlands just kept happening and kept getting less and less interesting happened.
Yeah, I was never a huge Borderlands fan, but I acknowledge it was very popular. Like, it had a place.
Extremely.
Yeah, extremely, but I also feel like maybe they, in my mind, again, not being a huge Borderlands, I think Borderlands 2 is probably where it peaked from the outside in, looking in. I saw a lot of people talking about Borderlands 2. It always felt to me like, but it's still Borderlands. Are you overreaching here with how much do you think Borderlands is amazing? Like, it's not, it's big, but should we all drop what we're doing when a new Borderlands gets announced? Is it that
2K
big?
2K thinks that, apparently.
2K loves to think that.
Well, here's what's happening, right? Is they put bets on this movie. A studio put a $120 million bet on that movie, plus whatever marketing costs they ended up incurring for that thing, and that bet extremely did not pay off.
Mm.
And I do think that 2K is probably sweating a little bit because they also made a bet by taking Gearbox back from, Embracer and saying, okay, you're ours now. We're doing this. Borderlands for real. You guys are our Borderlands studio. We're doing this shit. And now it's like, no response. It's like that. Like you said, the movie didn't do well, and this Borderlands trailer came out, and I have not seen anyone really say anything other than, okay, I guess there's another Borderlands game coming.
Now, if they come out with Brothers in Arms, Cold Day in Hell, that place would have just like rioted. That people lost their shit. Troy Baker comes back out like World War II uniform and being like, it's time to it's time to go win the Battle of the Bulge,
dude. It would have been like the crowd footage from like a 90s Michael Jackson concert. People just screaming and crying and throwing up everywhere.
Yeah, so this is slated for 2025. Like you said, Alex, this is back 2K after they bought a Gearbox or whatever version of Gearbox is associated with Borderlands.
It's still Gearbox is the thing.
Yeah.
Like, Gearbox, I don't think really got changed that much in the time that they were briefly with Embracer. Like, I know they had some layoffs, but I think the core business and at least some of that talent is still there. I mean, Randy Pitchford's still there. You couldn't fucking get him out of there with blasting caps. Like, that dude will be there until the lights shut off. But
I just mean in terms of like, I could be overcomplicating it, but I do think there was like Gearbox Publishing, there was Gearbox something, and I think Embracer kept a part of it that then got reincorporated into whatever.
I want to say the publishing arm probably didn't come over because 2K does not need that.
Part of the Lord of the Rings team. I forget what they renamed all those things. Middle Earthware.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was that $460 million deal they did. But yeah, that's kind of kicked it off. And so I think you and I, Alex, are not the audience for a Borderlands 4 announcement.
But I do think it's telling that that's what he opened with and not what he closed with. And granted, there's nothing in that trailer other than a logo. But at the same time, it's like, at another time, Borderlands might have been your closer if they had A, more to show, and B, that brand was maybe in a slightly better position.
But it was a hype trailer, right? It's let's get ready. But then again, I feel like, you know how, Rob, you were saying, like, when they show the Hoyoverse stuff, you feel, or when they show, like, maybe a Korean game or anime game number 12, you're like, I don't really know what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel that way a little bit about the Call of Duty stuff at this point, because they moved right into Black Ops 6, and I was like, this is like doing nothing for me. This is like doing nothing for me.
I feel nothing.
I kind of had a moment where I was like, do I need to get into Black Ops?
Oh, it did. It stirred a little bit.
We found him. Yeah. We found the guy.
Like, so once upon a time, I fucking loved Call of Duty. I loved Medal of Honor, Allied Assault.
That's not surprising.
Yeah, no, it's not. Now, the series like kind of left me behind. Like, the Modern Warfare was really cool, but it goes in that certain direction of, like, you know, we're going to keep basically like turning live leak footage into games. And then you have the other stuff, the sci-fi stuff and the Black Ops stuff. But the thing that's happening for me here is it's just kind of like, wait, are they starting to make like a spy game Mission Impossible series out of Black Ops? Is that where we've ended up with, like, fake Robert Redford running around in like a heightened alt history, 70s, 80s, 90s, with like kind of all sorts of wild shit happening? And it looked at, like, the fact that the thing that really killed me with those games was that the actual single player stuff started being so uninvolving. Remember those like famous like clips of people showing that you just like walk through these major sequences in Call of Duty games, and you didn't have to shoot, you didn't do anything.
Just let the scripting do it.
Yeah, it's just the entire thing is a haunted house, and like you can shoot stuff or not, it doesn't matter, because the system, the game is engineered to just like play out and unfurl this like tableau in front of you no matter what. Here, the other thing that was kind of getting me there was, they're actually like kind of asking you to play the game while this like shit is happening, and that suddenly catches my interest a little more. So there's more interesting stuff happening for you to do, like playing a shooter. And I do love me a good single player shooter. I don't have enough of them. And now that Immortals of Aveum isn't going to be a blockbuster series that I'll be feasting on for the next decade, maybe I have to open my horizons. Maybe Black Ops is calling me home. Calling
the duty home. Duty.
You're answering the Call of Duty, is what you're saying.
I will say, kind of, it's an interesting dissection of where Black Ops is, because it's always been a little more of the like kind of Marvel What If stuff, right? Like Black Ops. The thing I was watching it being like, I don't know, like there's Clinton on stage, right? Like we got this thing that's like just not doing it for me. When they got on the motorcycles, and I was like, okay, look, if you're gonna tell me you are just going to embrace this kind of late 80s, 90s nonsense action movie stuff, then like, and you're not going to take yourself too seriously and be like, look, this is the period we're doing it in. We always take stuff from the movies of the period piece. Like, let's do it. Then I'm a little more on board. If you give me that, like, but I want them to go all the way. I want to, like, then when I shoot my gun at somebody, I want it to look like they just sprung off a trampoline and go flying through the air.
Right. I want it to look like Commando.
Yeah, or Predator, the opening scene of Predator where they're just like laying waste to the entire jungle.
Sorry,
like,
you say this magazine holds 30 rounds? No, my friend. I think you mean like 300 rounds.
That's right.
Like,
That's right.
I need to be able to hold this at waist height and just go. and just people be like dancing with the squibs.
Yep.
Totally. Right. That's the kind of nonsense that I want. And I'm not sure that they seem somewhere in between from the first half of this trailer to the second half of this trailer. So maybe TBD there. I think I'm a little on the opposite end of the first person shooter stuff where there are so many first person non-single player narrative shooters out there, like competitive, team-based competitive things that I've always been a third person, like a action adventure game person. I was the person who played the Call of Duties for the single player. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll play. Yeah. I do the fighting games too. Yeah, I'll play Street Fighter, find out the story. What happened to Ryu? And people are like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, that's what's interesting to me. I want to know how Blanca became Blanca.
You know what the story doesn't do? Tell me I suck at this game. And
Totally.
Uninstall.
Yes, right. Yeah, exactly. The story doesn't necessarily just snipe me as soon as I respawn and then make me feel like I'm a liability on the team. I'm the hero. But yeah, we'll see where this one kind of nets out.
Well, I also need to confess, I am also like, look, is this a midlife thing happening? I don't know. I watched Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit the other week, the Chris Pine one, because I was like, I really owe it to myself to watch the Chris Pine Jack Ryan movie.
I don't know how you get there in your life, but good on you, man.
But like, yeah, I'm just like, sure, I'll enjoy these 80s these pot boilers. These techie espionage like pot boilers. I'm here for it. I ended up watching Safe House the other night, and I was like, is that Joseph Ferris? Is Joseph Ferris from Brothers? And is he in this movie?
Is he?
His brother is. Ferris is apparently a well-known Spanish actor who plays like badass commandos and like criminals as like that's what he's typecast as, but he looks like Joseph Ferris.
Oh, he does look just like him. Holy shit.
Wow.
It was like just me up like throughout him. The movie. I was like, did this guy have a secret acting career before he started showing up in Keeley shows being like, fuck the Oscars?
Okay, the thing that's amazing about him is that he looks just like Joseph Ferris, but like it's like every single feature on his face, like if you're in the face editor, you just made each feature slightly bigger.
Yeah, no, he's got that like stage presence.
Yeah,
he's got like higher like this is why this guy gets cast in the movies, and probably also because like he appears to be pretty gifted at like stunt performance.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe this will feed your what is that? Is that a espionage drama?
Yeah, it's a bit of that, but like it's so weird because like it's not the same part of my brain that's like I love Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, but they are connected somehow. Somehow the part of me that's like I want to watch the sad Englishman contemplate the decline of empire and the death of fellowship and honor in this modern world. That part of my brain is also connected to I want to watch Tom Cruise get in a helicopter chase for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe everybody's got a little Clance in them. Everybody's got a little Clancy.
Oh yeah, we've all been infected with the Clance in one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't. There's no
See
cure
a doctor if
there's
that's
no
the
cure
case.
for the clans.
No.
Dying Light: The Beast. That's the new standalone game in the Dying Light stuff. Dying Light's a game that I want to really like. It's a game that I keep being like, yeah, Dying Light, and then I spend some time in it, and then I always kind of bounce out of it. So.
I like that they tried to present as like, look, it's the latest in this character's storyline. And
Kyle
like,
Crane, yeah.
You might as well have just said Jim Smith to me. I have no idea who that is.
Is he the protagonist from the first game?
He might be. I don't know. I don't remember.
Yes. Kyle
Okay.
Crane is. So this is Techland's, as Ryan Davis used to say, you never know you're going to get the good Techland or the bad Techland.
My hope would be that, for me, I think Dying Light 2 just felt too big. It's so sprawling, there's so much stuff happening in it that it had no momentum to it. It was really hard to. The first game suffered from this a little bit too. You can get lost in side quests, but the second game was so like, go here, do this, but maybe you can also go do this. And if being a standalone, if it's a more focused down narrative version of this, that might actually address a lot of the issues that I had with the second game. Because like when Dying Light is good, I think that series rules. Like when you were in the middle of like a really good tense run, that whole concept, the parkour feels great, the weapons, like it all really hangs together. That feeling of like being really powerful but also really vulnerable. And Dying Light 2 just didn't set up those moments very well. I can imagine like a cut down version, it keeps putting its best foot forward a little better. That'd be my hope.
So it's been reported that it's about 20 plus hours of content. So that's, I don't know how you feel about that. Is that too much, or is that just
compared
about
to
right?
Dying Light 2? That's positively like that is the soul of brevity.
Straight up manageable.
And then also being reported, it will be free for players who own Dying Light 2 Stay Humans Ultimate Edition. So the pricing not available yet. So I don't know what that says about like kind of the scope of what they're going for here. Is it like one of those, side guide end story things, like a smaller package? Could be. What else was on here? Should we talk about Little Nightmares? Are any of you guys Little Nightmares fans?
I mean, I always enjoy the aesthetics of those games. I find playing them to be a little samey and kind of unremarkable, but like in terms of just coming up with creepy visuals, they are like in a class, not entirely on their own, but they're in an upper echelon, I feel like, of good, inventive, weird, creepy shit.
So we got Little Nightmares 3, but we also got Reanimal.
Right, which is the studio that made the first two is making Reanimal, and then another studio is apparently making Little Nightmares 3. Which I think, Alex, you were kind of curious dog looking at it sideways. Yeah.
In Little Nightmares 3 being like, who was it? It was Supermassive?
Well, Supermassive, I think, is maybe publishing it.
No, I think because
Bandai is still public because
Yes.
they've always done the Little Nightmares games, so it is actually Supermassive making that game.
I think it might be. Again, I looked at it last night. Now I've completely forgotten because it's been a whirlwind of time here. So my apologies for that information. But yeah, I think it might be Supermassive on the dev side of it. I'm going to look it up right now.
It's very easy to imagine a conversation somewhere along the way where the developers are like, we want to make a new game that's like Little Nightmares, but is not called that. And someone at Bandai was like, that's great, but we need a game called Little Nightmares because those actually sell pretty well.
Yeah, Supermassive, listed as a developer on Steam, published by Bandai Namco for Little Nightmares 3. And then Reanimal, which we're still in the period of time where distorted, distended sheep are horrifying.
You
Elden
saw that
Ring,
Goat Simulator trailer, we know.
Goat Simulator trailer. Elden Ring had its like roly sheep, and it's still terrifying. I will still be scared by it. But yeah, those games, it still seem to have a similar vibe, Reanimal, to Little Nightmares. You could have told me that was a Little Nightmares 3 trailer for Reanimal, and I would have believed you. Rob, are you a Monster Hunter person?
I am not.
Not?
I don't like me slaying majestic, beautiful creatures in the natural ecosystem. That couldn't be me.
What if that majestic creature were a sub?
Well then,
eat shit.
I would want to be that majestic creature, or I'd shoot it. Yep.
All right, there we go.
What if you were okay. Fantasy time here. What if you're in a World War II sub and the kind of Wolfenstein version of the Nazis has beasts, arcane beasts that are patrolling the waters, that have to get near the surface and they fire projectiles, huh?
Fantastic. You've created a hit game, my friend.
And like you're dropping eldritch bombs into the water. It's the only thing.
And if you can make the entire thing sufficiently anime, you could con a lot of people into just playing the most like intensely realistic, annoying, fussy World War II like submarine combat game, because it's like all right, I need the bearing on that kaiju.
Yes.
Perfect.
Imagine this. Imagine that. Okay, ready? Put theater of the mind, because imagine this trailer, right? It's anime naval commander, pipe in mouth, but they're on the bridge of a battleship cruising through the water, right? And he's got the pipe and he's got a patch over the eye, right? And he's like, all the comms people are like, sighting, bearing, whatever. Like the 12-year-old girl at the navigation screen is like, Captain, 12-year-old or kaiju level 3. They're beeping all over. They get one. They start drop the depth charges, and you kind of see it swimming on, and then one goes up, belly up, right? They get one. They're coming, and then there's just the his coffee starts shaking a little bit on the water. And then a big red blob appears on the thing, and she kind of lowers her comms thing and is like, "Oh my God, Captain!" And they look off to the distance, and there's a giant kaiju coming, and you pull out to the battleship cruising, but suddenly the battleship is actually the hat on top of a giant mecha as it surfaces from the water as he's pulling, and the water and the steam and the gears are coming out as this is just the top of this giant mech racing, and then they just punch, and that's okay. What do you think?
You are 98% of the way there. There's one thing you're missing. A slow, ethereal cover, small, wispy voice coming up. We all live in a yellow submarine, a yellow submarine, a yellow submarine.
And then you're cutting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
We did it. We made a video game.
I would be so, because I would extend my arm and throw my cape, and I'd be like, fire, and nobody could fire unless I flung my cape over my shoulder and extended my arm. But then also in the game, people think you'd be doing that, but actually then the game you'd reveal, no, you have to go to the right forearm station and pull these levers, like set target info for the mecha punch. Otherwise you'll whiff.
That's right. You still have to do all the targeting. You still have to do all of the. This is still a World War II fight here. We are steam and compasses, and you are communicating down that captain who is unflappable, throwing his arm out, but the guy on the thing is like, I need that punch. He's like, I'm working on. I need the calculations. I need that punch. I've got it.
You're gonna be playing that Calvin and Hobbes strip where he imagines like two steering crewmen at his eye sockets, and people think right landing appendage, just miss the stair. Repeat, miss the stair.
Totally. Yes. Okay.
We nailed it.
Yeah, we nailed it. Anyway, get on that Hoyoverse. But what we did get is new Monster Hunter, which is out in the wilds. Hunting big monsters,
desert monsters, brewing up sandstorms, and lurking with dragons in the sandstorms.
Yeah, I mean, look, did you play the last Monster Hunter at all?
No, but I've seen people play the last Monster Hunter.
Okay, I got into it. I kind of dug it. If
it looks great. This whole run Monster Hunter's been on, that series seems awesome right now.
Oh yeah.
If they can still finesse, and I know you don't want to lose your hardcore Monster Hunter crowd, but if you can still finesse a little bit the on-ramp in Monster Hunter, just a little bit more, kind of tweak some of the getting into games and a little bit of the hey, you're gonna be okay. There are very talented and skilled Monster Hunters out there, and the skill ceiling is infinite. But if you're just a little Monster Hunter newbie, you're going to be okay here, and we're going to get you up to speed with all your weird weapon stuff. I could use a little more of that. So that's they showed a little bit of that. That's a game. Where is that coming out? Did they announce it's still 2025? Yes, right. We talked about that. No hard date. All right, 2K still got more civilizations to conquer.
Hell yeah.
Civ 7. Now, Alex, I know your feelings on the Civ series. They are strong.
Largely pro, yes.
Rob, I don't know if I know yours. Are you? Where do you fall on Civ?
Pro, but like every generation, I go a little less into Civ. Is the thing for me? This is the thing that really peaks with Civ 4. It's sort of steady. Like Civ 2 was like the game of my childhood. Civ 4 was like the game of like late college, and for a number of years there. Civ 5 I played a ton of, and then but like never loved it in the same way I love Civ 4. You have your Civ that you love, and then you can appreciate the tweaks they introduce. But that is kind of the trap that 2K ends up in. Once it stopped being sort of a linear, like the graphics just keep getting better, there's just more Civ. You start having now anything you do is going to alienate some people because it's like, this is what Civ is to me, and I don't want this.
Right, you have to invent new flavor profiles as you're going along, basically.
And Civ 6 was a real distinct flavor profile.
Yes, it was.
I admired a lot of what they're trying to do. I was explaining this on the stream the other day. Like, I think Civ 6 is really cool, and it borrowed a lot of really smart ideas from particularly like the Endless Legend series in terms of like the way cities build out and consume the map and expand, and just how important like the map and the variables are throughout that game. But it also means that it was not a game that lended itself to the real zone that Civ sings in for me, which is like, man, I'm just going to play this game till 4 a.m, and my brain's going to be like half engaged, but I'm just going to be cruising.
Yeah.
Civ 6 was like, could you think about this harder? And frequently I was like, yes, but I don't want to.
Yeah. I think it got there with the climate change expansion they did. I felt like that was the thing that really kind of locked that game into place for me of like, okay, whatever it was I was missing from this experience that let me kind of really groove with it was what they added in that thing. And I think over time, the updates they have also added with more, Civ leaders, some of the stuff they did with like the heroes, like the weird like legendary stuff, like characters that you could like spawn onto the map and stuff. There were a lot of like novel things in there that I think helped change up what a game could be. Like there were so many options for how you wanted to play that it finally got to a place where I was pretty excited about it. But early on, it was really hanging its hat on a couple of things that I think weren't enough to sustain that game right out of the gate.
I did not watch the what's new in Civ thing they had after, so I'm not exactly sure what's going. Did you? Okay. Is there anything that is making its way into this game that you're surprised or is noteworthy for you?
Nothing surprising exactly. The only thing I will say is I feel like they took a little bit from that other 4X game that came out a couple of years ago, the Humankind game. The idea of your civilization actually changing depending on the age. Now, the way Humankind did it, if I remember correctly, was they would literally change the civilization. You are literally just changing to a completely different civilization when those eras would change over. Whereas here, you're the same civilization building on top of the old one. You're not changing your leader. You are not changing like you're not suddenly the Egyptians going to the fucking, the medieval English or something like that. It's more like you are taking a set of bonuses and a set of, basically like gameplay pathways, and you are building over top of the thing you built in the previous age.
So I do know one of the things is that your leader's not tied to the Civ, right? Like
no, you can pick any leader and make them the leader of any Civ.
So I thought I read a thing that was like what Civ you can pick is tied to what the current age is. Is that a thing that, like at the start of the game, or is that how does that work? Do you know?
It's not fully clear yet, but the idea seems to be that you are picking something like the ancient Egyptians is the one that they are going with in the video that they showed.
Okay.
And then, you pick your leader for that. And then when you get to the next stage, you're creating a version of the Egyptians that probably is influenced by some other major civilization from that Middle Age. Like that's the version of it you are building. I
haven't touched a Civ since probably 4 was the biggest one. I maybe 3 or 4 I got into, maybe 2. I can't remember.
It's really funny because 5 was my first. Like I had not played these games until 5 came around, and Ryan Davis would not stop talking about it. And that, I kind of subscribe to his Mario Kart alpha theory where your first is inevitably the one you were always the one you were most attached to.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I don't think Civ 5 is perfect. I've gone back and played 4 and 3, and I don't think I've ever played 1, but I have played 2. I think those games are all great for different reasons. It's just that when you have that attachment to a certain thing, you get used to it. 6 wasn't always doing some of those things, though some of the things they changed, I think, were from the better. I don't know what I necessarily want from a new Civ other than for them to have some good ideas. Sure. That's really all I'm asking from them. And it seems like they at least are trying something that feels very different from what 6 was.
I just found my Civ 2 book the other day as I was cleaning out my basement here. And I was like, man, this is a very old series.
Yeah. And Sid Meier's still kicking around, still out there, still programming.
Admire the Myers.
And I like Ed Beach. I'm glad he's still kind of at the forefront of these.
I'll tell you what, let's take another quick break here, and we'll come back. We'll do some of the back half of Gamescom and get to the back half of the show. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the news.
It's the majority of it.
Yeah, we'll have a little bit more there, but we'll take a quick break, and we'll come back in just a few. Stick around. All right, we are back. We still have more stuff from Gamescom. I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit and just kind of run through my notes here. Some stuff we don't have to spend too much time here on, like Marvel Rivals, which we've talked about before. That game seems like it is probably going to do just fine. Just fine. Alex, anything new to say there? They really did. Yeah, they really didn't. There's some new Marvel stuff in there. That game's going to do
it's going to do just fine. Yeah. They had a Captain America and Winter Soldier. Those were the new announcements, right?
Winter Soldier with like a squid kind of arm thing. I really don't know what the state of Winter Soldier is.
I remember the cyborg arm. The squid arm is maybe a new thing that I'm not aware of. But I mean, fucking Red Skull and his people were into some weird shit, so you never know.
That's the 6v6 team-based shooter.
It's Overwatch. Just say it's Overwatch. It's their Overwatch.
Third-person Overwatch, with Marvel. But Monument Valley 3, that's one that I'm actually pretty excited for. I really liked Monument Valley 1 and 2. I think those are great little tablet and phone games. Those are the ones where you kind of rotate the world around to make things click and do a lot of spinny.
We'll say that maybe that announcement was the most peak and valley of anything, because it was like, great, new Monument Valley 3. Oh, it's a Netflix exclusive. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. Release on Netflix. Sometimes Netflix, I feel like, publishes a thing. Sometimes they put it on their services behind their Netflix.
They say exclusively on Netflix for this one.
Yeah. We got more on Starfield Shattered Space stuff here. That little rover trailer, which I don't think hit so much for me with their tone piece. I kind of still am into their space horror business they have going on. I'm curious to see that. Rob, where did you fall on Starfield?
I got very bored.
Yeah. Okay.
I was there's a lot of the aesthetics I liked, but I was just like, there's just nothing here for me to really dig into. Like conceptually, characters you meet, I was massively bored.
Yeah. I would maybe not massive. I just ran out of steam. I just kind of petered out. Okay. Rob, how do you feel about an MMO Dune in Dune Awakening?
Man, I was like, there's parts of this look really cool, right? It's like they're doing big Dune stuff. And when you see the big worm come out and eat a bunch of like mining equipment, and like that stuff looks cool. The fighting looks cool. I have never been someone who's like, I just want to spend hours harvesting little goods and turning it into drywall for my for a little house somewhere. And that's a big part of this game. Is now, does it look like Denis Villeneuve drywall? Yeah, it does. But it still feels like I'm hanging sheetrock to create like a little box that has more widget factories in it.
But every once in a while, a giant worm.
Yeah,
and massive, and everybody else can see your drywalled house, your house's house, the house of houses. Yeah, we'll see how this one goes. This could be, I still haven't seen Dune 2 yet. I should probably go watch Dune Part 2, and kind of re-up my Dune joy. I'm a fan of the book, let's say. I think I read the first 2 or 3.
I don't feel like joy is the predominant feel
Dune
Dune
vibe
kind of exudes. Yeah, more of a sort of perplexing, complication than anything else.
It's a melange,
and also a very psychedelic kind of sexuality. I don't know. This game does not seem horny enough to be Dune. That's me personally. But
Alex, I think you mentioned or alluded to this during the Gamescom stream. If you could buy for an extra $19.99, let's say, or $9.99, a reskin in the
David Lynch style,
the
Art Deco Dune
with like big boxy shields and the whole thing, would you take it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had already bought this game, yes, absolutely.
That is coming later in 2025, and then consoles even later than that. That's PC. game at first. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Big cheers for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. A game that highly anticipated. I did not play the first one. It kind of got mired up in some of that BS. Kind of stayed away from it. But Kingdom Come Deliverance did really well.
Yes.
That's a game, and I think people are pretty excited for the second one. Do you guys have any familiarity with the game?
Only what was said about it and what one of the people who made it was saying around the time it came out. But I know people who did play it seem to really enjoy it, but my personal preference was to just kind of stay away from that whole thing.
Yeah, I kind of steered clear from it. Rob, did you play it?
I played a fair bit of the first one. Like a lot of RPGs that just ran out of steam because like you just start, so many RPGs are good at opening with like a strong first act, and then it's like now to release you into the wider world. And it's like, well, what do I do here? And it's like, anything you want. No, there's no like really intense like plot pushing you forward. It's a strange thing because the guy behind it and the discourse around it, but particularly like that one like Gamergator dude, certainly made it sound like you're playing a game that was going to be some sort of edgelord's fantasy of the Middle Ages, and it was going to be like super in your face, sexist, racist. The game, that stuff doesn't come through. I've seen some people say the sexism does. I'm less convinced that it comes through. Like I think it is trying to be like more historically grounded, and so like there are going to be gender roles that are a little harder and firmer in that world than like in fantasy. But yeah, like I understood why people liked it a lot. I think it got at a lot of the charm of like early Elder Scrolls games, down to kind of jankiness of it all. But I think the surprise, the thing that seemed to resonate the most with people, reviews I read of it that were pretty into it, was like it was a profoundly goofy game. Kind of had an odd charm to it, kind of a dumbass protagonist who kind of Forrest Gumps his way through this medieval crisis. And so like in a lot of ways the game is very different from what it was pitched as by that like Daniel Vavra dude or Varva. But I am curious now if like the second one is going to land, because I also think sometimes that is a flavor of RPG that people hadn't encountered in a while, and with the second one, will it hit the same?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I had heard rumblings, Alex, I think you mentioned some of this too, that maybe they made overtures about trying to incorporate a little more in the context of historical accuracy, more diversity into the game. Am I understanding that right?
I mean, again, it's just stuff I've seen talked about very loosely in the background of things. I have absolutely no idea what any of that is going to bear out into, but there have been some overtures, I think.
Yeah, look, it's one of those things that got caught in the shit with doubling down on what I consider shitty views from somebody who worked on it, and just kind of pushed me away from it. That's really, I mean, some of that is happening now. We should probably mention with Black Myth, where it's getting kind of caught in this, are you courting this? What's going on here? And dust is still up in the air on that one to kind of figure out what is happening. But for folks who don't know, I'm not going to get into all the details. Basically, some review guidelines went out to sounds like a couple of streamers, which have been verified for that game. And a lot of it was like, don't talk about politics, don't talk about
feminism was one of them, I think. Yeah,
and it's hard to tell what is happening there. They are based in China. They are under, let's just say, the eyeball of folks over there. Hard to tell, but it's when you get a sense that maybe, well, are you courting this crowd? Like what is going on here? Are you playing footsie a little bit with some of this crowd? It's a little hard to tell.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is that you can pinpoint there is that they are in fact. There was a time, at least, where people on that team were trying to court that audience, and there have been statements and things made in I think Discords and maybe some of the other places. Where
is this for Game Science for Black Myth?
Yeah, I think this is the studio, and then there was also reporting about some stuff, some potential misconduct situations going on at that studio as well. But the real thing is that like that stuff with the streamer guidelines, it's no one seems to know exactly who it went to or how many people it went to. And reviewers, like people who were just regular trade press, did not get those guidelines. So it's possible some agency was not talking to other agencies that were doing PR for this game. It's possible that maybe that only went out to a specific subset of the audience. I know people were not necessarily getting that game ahead of time. There were some people out there saying that like they were asking about it and they were like, if you didn't get it already, you're not getting it. So I don't know. I don't pretend to know everything that's going on there. It just feels like, to me, the devs have done themselves no favors in terms of like normal players and not necessarily courting this like weird shithead portion of the audience. And it just, I don't know. It all feels very messy.
And that stuff can sometimes just turn me away from being like, I don't even want to engage with this product. Which is some of the
mess. I don't need mess in my video games. I have enough mess in my life.
Worth mentioning, that game was also shown. Black Myth Wukong was shown at Opening Night Live. That game apparently is also doing gangbusters. I just saw a report come out too that said 90% of those sales, which was a lot of sales, were in China. So I don't know if that's the veracity of that claim, but that was what some people were reporting there.
I mean, again, big like AAA style games coming out of China like this is still a relatively new thing. I mean, it's happening more and more now, but like I imagine at this point, like that feels like a very big marquee game for people who are invested in Chinese game development.
There's a bit of like the shitheads are looking for dubs, right? They want to show that like it's very important to them that
someone sides with them.
Yeah, and that it's successful, right? That like it is you can't ignore our movement because the true gamers like this game. I don't know, I don't fully know who is driving the sales of Black Myth Wukong. It's an odd saga because like even those guidelines they released were also kind of like cut in two directions. It was also simultaneously like, hey, but if you're like kind of a right-wing edgelord streamer, also maybe consider just shutting up and like just talk about the game. And I think they've it seems like they played a very cynical hand here in terms of like how they have winked and nodded at a toxic subset of players, while also trying to keep just enough distance that most people wouldn't associate this game with them.
Right.
But I think there's going to be a lot of like trying to point to it. What was a bit like with Stellar Blade? There will be attempts to try to point to that as like, this is what authentic true gamers that have not been corrupted by the woke mind virus want. But I think also related to that is the fact that in general, the people who like think this way have kind of lost the culture on every other front, and so they're starting to like. I think there's a reason they're starting to grab onto projects from cultures they're not super literate in, and they don't fully understand the setting or background, and trying to like claim that as theirs. Because anything in like, for the most part, American, Western European, like dev scenes is kind of explicitly now rejecting their whole deal, and so you're kind of left searching for people who've not explicitly disavowed you, right? And trying to claim that like they're making this for us,
right?
It just makes me want to disengage, from some of that stuff. But again, games did really well. Secret Level, this thing looks kind of cool. This is the
Tim Miller project at Amazon.
This is the, hey, we make cool-looking cutscenes for a lot of these games. What if we just made little animated vignettes for some of these things? And some of those things being Armored Core, Dungeons & Dragons, Warhammer 40K, Sifu, I think, was in there, Spelunky, The Outer Worlds,
Mega Man.
Yeah. So this is in the style of the game, but, kind of ratcheted up to a nice CG a version of it, not like an 8-bit Mega Man thing, or at least I assume not an 8-bit Mega Man thing. Didn't seem like it. And this will be on Amazon Prime. This is Secret Level. I would check it out.
Yeah. No, I think this, like, of all the things that were shown on this that were actually, like, not expected or slightly surprising, I actually felt like this thing landed the hardest in a weird way. Like, even though it's not an actual game, is because, one, Miller was, like, shockingly emotional about this thing he's apparently been working on for the last 3 years. But also, like, it seems like, he's taking the Love, Death, and Robots formula, which was a very successful animated anthology series at Netflix, and applying it to these video game stories. And I think that's actually a great way to approach this kind of thing. Instead of like committing to like, hey, we're going to do a 16 episode or 2-season run of, Mega Man cartoons, why not just tell a story within that and see if people like it, and then maybe we do more of that in another season or something? Like, that's kind of an interesting approach, I feel like.
Yeah, I like anthology stuff that is short, sweet, and just nails it.
Yeah.
And look, it didn't hurt that I do like when they do those cutscenes for 40K in the game, and you're like, yeah.
So you know what occurred to me? Didn't they try to create a Warhammer Plus subscription offering that one of the perks was going to be like animated Warhammer shit?
I don't remember that.
I feel like a lot of people that they hoped would remember that did not, in fact, remember that service was existing. But I was sitting there watching like what looked like a pretty sweet 40K cutscene, and I was like looking forward to that. I'm going to circle that one in my calendar. But then it occurred to me, it's like, I'm pretty sure Games Workshop had a thing that was trying to sell itself on the back of like, do you want to watch a cartoon about Space Marines doing Space Marine stuff? And the answer is obviously yes.
Yeah.
But it seems like they discovered that it is maybe hard to make television harder than releasing overpriced codices and unpainted figures
and unpainted minis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which was was it Warhammer? Was it Space Marine 1 that had was it the trailer with that one with the pile of bodies of orcs and stuff? Do you remember that?
That was Dawn of War 3.
Oh, that was Dawn of War 3.
The bodies falling through space.
Yeah.
One of the coolest, wish that game were better, but one of the greatest distillations of the entire universe's vibe.
It was like striking. I still remember that. It's like a little haunting and a weird universe.
Yeah.
All right. We just quickly here, Batman Arkham Shadow, which is the Quest VR Batman. I think we saw some of this earlier with the more in the Batman vision of looking around. If I can ever get that PlayStation adapter thing, I don't even know if that would let me do Quest stuff. I have no idea. I'm a VR Luddite at this point. But that brings us up to, by my notes, Peter Molyneux's back on the stage.
Oh my God.
Molyneux's back, and, Molyneux
has not changed.
Okay, I mentioned this during the stream. I feel like Molyneux became a little bit of a cartoon at some point in during the end of the Fable stuff, but then really took a turn around the goddess stuff, and I think that's really where a lot of people started turning their back on him and being like, you know what, maybe we don't engage with this as seriously as maybe we did in the past. But he is back with a new game, Masters of Albion. It's really looks like a mix between a God game, black and white with a hand stuff populace, kind of a mashup of his greatest hits.
Well, yeah, but in a very mobile-y kind of presentation, and I will say this is also apparently born out of the ashes of his failed NFT project.
Oh yeah, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Is that what was his NFT project?
I think it was something along these lines, but it didn't pan out. So he took some of that and said, okay, now I'm going to make a different game that does not have all that NFT bullshit attached to it.
I feel like these things are hard to pin down because usually it's like, see that game over there?
Mm-hmm.
There's like NFTs in it. That's the concept. Is like it's a normal game, right? But there's NFTs in it. And what do they do? Well, they're like the characters in the game. Okay. Any other? No. You just. So the characters, great. There was a weird when he showed up on stage and was like, "I need to come home." I was over in mobile. What was I doing over there?
And
it's like, it was the most like your grifter X has shown back up, being like, I've gotten right with the Lord.
Yeah, I cleaned up.
I'm so like. That whole that lost weekend. What a crazy decade, huh?
Yeah.
But I'm back with my real family.
But she shows up at your parents' house while you're there for Thanksgiving or something, and it's just like kind of sitting down, making nice with your mom in a way that's just like, what is going? Do we trust this guy? What's going on?
And then halfway through dinner, and he's like, "So, I have this investment opportunity for you."
This is a beautiful. I love what you've done with the place, Carol.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Your house is great. Have you ever thought of renting out part of it while you're on vacation? You guys. Oh, really? Oh my gosh, the market's fantastic. People would love this charming town. People would love to be here. Yeah.
I said it on the stream. Peter Molyneux is, genuinely speaking, one of the most carny people we have ever had do like prominent game design anywhere. He has that Carnival Barker mentality. He has that showman's kind of flair. A little less of it now as he's getting older, I think. He seems like he's mellowed out a little bit, but it's that real, I'm going to sell the shit out of this no matter what it is kind of thing. And it worked for him for a long time. And I don't think that works anymore. I don't think he has I don't think he has the juice for it. And two, the product he is currently selling, I'm going to be honest, the thing he showed did not look very exciting.
It showed pretty rough too.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Moving on from Peter Molyneux. We have a couple more things here. I'm going to hit the big one first, which is they showed more Indiana Jones. Thought what they showed wasn't that inspiring to kind of get your imagination and anticipation up. I thought they've shown better for this game.
Mm-hmm.
But they did announce that it will be coming to the PlayStation. I mean, this will be coming to the Xbox and PC on December 9th end of this year, so that's pretty big news. But I thought the bigger news that trumped that is that this is going to come to the PS5 in 2025, and that's kind of a big deal. I think after Microsoft's and Xbox Games' first volley there, weren't sure where they were going to head with bringing their games over to other platforms, and I certainly didn't think any Indiana Jones would be one that makes the leap right away, but here we are. Any thoughts?
Not based on what they showed. I think that last showing they had at Summer Games was at least a little bit more substantive and, didn't feature Troy Baker wielding what looked like a motion captured dick for a hot second there when they were showing that footage.
Yeah.
But I think the problem only problem I have with this demo is that this was their opportunity to really kind of lay into what playing as Indy and what the structure of this thing is going to be like would be, and they just kind of didn't do it.
No. It was more of a tone piece, again,
Yeah.
with Troy Baker kind of narrating in Troy Baker's voice.
Yeah.
His actual voice of what the vibe is of Indy and what makes an Indiana Jones game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was more of that. But yeah, the PS5 stuff I thought was probably the more radical thing that was announced there for Indiana Jones. Microsoft still making moves. And then to kind of cap it off there, the last thing I have on my list here is Mafia. Very short teaser trailer for Mafia, the old country. Mafia, kind of a hit and miss series for me, but I'll give them benefit of a doubt. We'll see what happens.
I think Mafia always tends to have fun stories.
Yeah.
But then the games don't really figure out how to fill out their runtime to a large extent. Like Mafia 1, inspired touch to have you start the game as a cabbie doing little fares and slowly get pulled into an escalating life of crime. But man, there's a lot of running around, pretty rote scripted missions, just getting in gun battles with tons of fail states. Mafia 3, awesome Vietnam era crime epic.
Great pulpy storytelling.
And then you're just drive here and kill these rednecks and blow up their drugs.
Yeah.
And you have enough of that going on. It's all right, I would just prefer to move this along.
I will say the one thing that Mafia 3 really had going for it gameplay-wise was it did the thing we talked about earlier, which is that every enemy, when you would shoot them, would literally go find a railing that it could go, flying over. You could see the character kind of shuffling toward an object. It could do a big blah over when you shot them. That was a great, kind of broken touch, but it was kind of great.
Also, it did really let you use explosives a lot in that game in a way that was really satisfying. I was basically, my end game with that was just terrorism, basically. It was 4 different flavors of we got 4 IEDs set up over here, and now to strap dynamite to this truck and just drive it toward the mission objective and hop out at the last second and see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, Mafia, the old country, it takes place in Sicily in the early 1900s. Not too much known about it yet.
They're going to do their Godfather too. That's what they're going to do here, and they
only
can do
3 weapons.
Yeah.
Dagger, pistol, Lupara,
and poison carbonara.
Kind of curious to see what it is. They are slated for 2025. Who knows? But that's Hangar 13 coming out of 2K. And Yeah.
Well, just real quick, I'll say I think the most interesting thing here is that we get to see finally what the state of Hangar 13 is, because they had that big project canceled that was not a Mafia game, and then some things got shuffled around at 2K, and I don't know what the current Hangar 13 is.
Yeah.
I don't know what talent they have on hand. I don't know how many of those people got laid off from Mafia 3 and the other project, so this is kind of a reintroduction for that studio.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing more of this. This is we really just got a teaser, an announcement trailer.
And I mean, like, it is kind of thing that I have always hoped to see more from. Like, who knows if it's going to be fully open? I don't know. Mm-hmm. But the idea of just going to settings that are not, here's a big U.S. city, like the notion of just going to a place that's like really distinctive, really different, own history,
turn of the century
geography.
Sicily is totally that.
Yeah, like, and I hope it pays off for them, because like I think so many outside of Assassin's Creed, so many people get chased off of like telling interesting stories in interesting places because like nobody knows anything about that. And I don't think people know much about, like, again, I think what people know about like the mafia in Sicily is literally 20 minutes of Godfather 2. That's right. But it's cool they're going in this direction.
Yeah.
I wonder how much they'll get into with the politics of the time and kind of, people fleeing Sicily. And, that is about the time that my grandparents all basically got the hell out of Sicily, like the early 1900s.
The thing that's going to be a little fraught about this is it's not like this is old timey and like, oh, this stuff is all like, it's not like this anymore. The mafia still dominates Sicily and southern Italy to the point where it is like, there are like failed state vibes in parts of Italy, because any attempt to address this stuff ends up like public officials being killed. Mm-hmm. Like slavery is a huge issue, down there, because criminal cartels like run a lot of the agriculture. So there's an element of this is an ongoing, like, not crisis. It's just like a shitty like structural feature now,
right,
of like life in southern Italy.
Right. This isn't necessarily a fantasy tale. Yeah. Though I'm not saying this will be a documentary.
I bet not.
I imagine the approach will be very similar to the way that Mafia 3 approached its southern racial politics. There will be a certain amount of added bombast to make it work in an action game, but at the same time, I think they will be reasonable. If it's any of the same people, I hope they will be reasonably respectful of kind of what the actual dynamics are there.
All right. Anything else from Gamescom? Opening Night Live?
Not really. I think that was kind of the big touchstones there.
Yeah. I think that's going to... We'll see what else gets announced. Like I said, as we're recording this, Gamescom is still ongoing. Big shout out to Video Games Chronicles for their great write-up of the big things from there, too. I want to thank them. Let's move on to a couple of other stories here quickly. Checking my notes. We talked about indie on the PS5. I thought that was a pretty big one. The Nintendo Museum is going to be opened. Did you guys get a chance to catch any of their Nintendo Direct showcasing the Nintendo Museum?
I did after the fact, yeah.
Looks kind of rad. I don't know. I'm not a big Nintendo fanboy. Like, of course, like I like Nintendo's products. I've grown up with Nintendo. This just looks like this is what I want my Nintendo collection to look like in a lot of ways. Not necessarily with the giant Wii controllers that you're moving around, like maybe fetishizing some of these controllers, but the very austere, like a couple of things on a shelf. It just seems pleasant. There's a reverence in some of that museum that I kind of like.
Well, and it very much helps to have Miyamoto as your tour guide here, which I assume is happening for everyone that goes to this museum. You go there and Miyamoto is just waiting for you to take you through because he's not doing anything else. But yeah, no, it has a real interesting, kind of serene feel to it. It's not the kind of thing, based on what they showed, that I would ever go out of my way to go see. Yes. But if I'm in Japan and I'm going to Kyoto, that's absolutely a place I'm going to go.
Definitely, yes. Yeah. I don't know what the pricing is going to be like to get in there or what, but yes, I am getting in there and I'm walking out with some kind of souvenir.
It helps that it's in Kyoto, which I still count as maybe the best city I've ever been to. It is just beautiful there.
And it's going to open October 2nd, 2024, like Alex said, in Kyoto. Is Uji? Is that a province in Kyoto? I'm not sure how they break up.
Prefecture?
It might be a prefecture, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, they showed that. You should watch that Nintendo Direct if you kind of didn't see it. It wasn't about games. You're not going to learn about the Switch 2, but you will see.
You will see some great Hogan's Alley box art on a shelf.
Look, you got two people. I think Miyamoto tries to play some Super Mario Brothers with another person on a giant Famicom controller, which is pretty dumb and pretty fun.
Miyamoto seems happy and healthy. That is the thing I mostly took away from this video, is that he seems to be in good spirits and doing well, and that is all I want for him in the world.
That's kind of it for the news. They got Xbox kind of announced their date for their digital only Series X.
Mm-hmm.
The dickless Xbox Series X 1 terabyte will be October 15th, with some other countries following October 29th. But we've
never have I needed a box less than that one, unfortunately.
I don't know, that one to me isn't that high on my priority list.
No,
I think the move was to lean in and be like, we're gonna fix up. We know a lot of you want that physical media. Just lean into like the PlayStation. We all know that player kind of sucks. This is not like the PS3 when that was a good Blu-ray player. It's not good. That's not a good player. Xbox should have leaned in and been like, come be a physical media freak with the Xbox. This is your hi-fi box.
Like we are selling now cases that are bespoke cases for these games, like Steelbox series. That we are making an ecosystem for the physical collector here.
I think if they had not just spent the entire GDP of San Marino to buy Activision Blizzard, they might have been in a position where they could lean in a little harder on some boutique hardware shit that would appeal only to dorks like us. But right now, they are in a you gotta make that money back mode, and they are not gonna make that money back with better disk drives, unfortunately.
It's gonna be with
no,
Indie.
but I'm not sure they're gonna make it back. Like the thing that I see with this is like, was this what is keeping, you know, like even if you get a slightly lower price point, it's just like when people are looking for like which system should I get, PS5 is the answer for the most part. Like that's just
it
now
really
it.
is. I like my Xbox, but I cannot justify recommending that over the PS5 at this time to just about anyone.
Unless you want to get in on, I think Game Pass is still a pretty decent subscription service.
True. But a lot of that stuff you can get on PC. A lot of
that stuff you can get up. What you can get, but you know, I'll keep maintaining and keeping up a pretty good, decent PC. We've talked about this a lot versus just having the console can sometimes be an ask for people.
Sure,
you know, you need the setup and stuff. I still see that appeal. I don't know. It's kind of a jump ball. I really do feel like for a lot of that stuff. And as I talk to my brothers about it and be like, what are we doing next? What's our next move here? Is it PS5 Pros? Is it are we going to move all over into the Xbox ecosystem? Because they are one or the other. They are not, I get everything. Right. So these
they're
are
normal people who don't need to own 3 consoles at a time. Yeah.
That's right. But, having that gaming subscription also costs a lot of money a month. All right, I think that's the news. I think we're going to wrap up here. Rob, I thank you for joining us. I know you've got more podcasting to do today. You were on the wheel, my friend, from last night to this, to coming up next. Where can folks find you? What is going on in Rob Zacny world? Where are you headed next?
Oh man! So after this, fortunately not a podcast. We're gonna be doing some more motorsports managing over on stream over at Remap Radio. You can see everything we're up to at remapradio.com, and we're same handle on socials, any platform. But yeah, like from here, it's like go manage motorsport. We've unlocked exciting new strategies where we just don't put fuel in the car, and because there's no fuel in the car, it's faster. Mm-hmm. We're going to be testing the outer limits of that as a race strategy. It's really unlocked some things for us. I think we're gonna have our normal podcast dropping on Friday. As I said, More Civilized Age is getting into the Timothy Zahn Star Wars stuff. And over at F1.cool on Shift F1, we're back. F1 is back from hiatus, so Daniel Dwyer and Drew Scanlon and I are back to talking about F1 late into the night on Tuesdays, releasing like Wednesday morning. So it's a packed schedule for sure. Maybe a little too packed, but it's also a lot of fun.
Well, again, I thank you for coming by, and I think Patrick is going to swing by here on Friday to play Volgar with Brad Shoemaker. Is currently on our schedule. Brad out again, dealing with some personal stuff, but I think should be back on Friday. Rob, people can go sign up over at remapradio.com if they want to support you guys over there.
There's a big sign up button right there.
I've seen it. I like, what is this having a website thing? I just don't understand. How does that even happen? You go there and you just sign up. We also, over at Nextlander, have a Nextlander Patreon, which you can go support if you want to come support us as well. Patreon.com/Nextlander. You'll find a bunch of cool stuff there. We've got Never Been a Better Podcast, which we just recorded last night with Jeff Backlar and Abby Russell. You can hear all about Backlar's solar panel journey and roofing, the things that happen.
The important stuff.
The important stuff. Redoing a roof. You get the Watchcast over there. You got it, Ramblecast, all sorts of fun podcasts. Like we said at the top of the show, just mountains of podcasts. You can just go find them over there. Patreon.com/Nextlander. There is one tier there, though, that gets their names read on this here show. Alex, would you mind reading those mysterious benefactors for us today?
Absolutely. Our mysterious benefactors for this week are Sean Miller, RRE, Infelicitus Rips, Kelly F., Brian Lucier, Skywarp, John Hubbard, Evan Cook, Mark Wilhelm, Jerry Lee, 5 Days at Deirdre's, Gary Pesky, Robert Fisher, Bunny Fiend, Chad Rita, Statics, Fantastic Asm 89, Brian Murphy, Randy Duax, Andrew Tiepkin, Alex Wu, It Me JP, Edward Chick, Andrew Slosky, Steve Lynn, Matthew Herrig, David Campos, and Tyler Treese.
Thanks again to all of our mysterious benefactors, and thanks to everyone for supporting us. Thanks again, Rob, for joining us. Always welcome, always a pleasure. Go check out Remap Radio and all the other fine podcasts Rob is on. Thanks again, Rob.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Alex, and we'll be back next week.